Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight you're not a general or a senator or even a half-decent gladiator with a fighting chance and a fan club. No, tonight you're something far less dignified. You're a venator, a beast fighter, the lowest rung on Rome's blood-soaked ladder of public entertainment. You've been handed a trident, a wooden shield, and a loose promise that the lion might already be full. You're not here because you're strong, or skilled, or brave. You're here because someone had a debt, or a grudge, or a scheduling gap in the morning show, and now you're about to entertain 10,000 strangers by trying not to die in the dirt. Before we march you out into the sun to fight a half-starved bear in front of drunk aristocrats and screaming children, do me a favour. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there. If you'd like early access to these grim bedtime stories, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, you'll find the Patreon link in the description. But for now, lie back, get comfortable, and remember, you are not the main event. You are the warning act. Let's begin. You never set out to die in front of a crowd. No one does, really. You were supposed to be a mason or a porter, or anything really. Something with steady work and minimal mauling. But life, as it turns out, is less about choices and more about debts, and yours stacked up like amphorae in a wine cellar. Maybe your father borrowed too much from a lender with an oily grin. Maybe you got caught stealing figs you couldn't afford. Or maybe you just existed in the wrong place when someone rich needed to save face. It doesn't matter. Your path ended the moment your name was scratched onto the roster. You belong to the games now. Not as a gladiator, mind you. Gladiators have names, training. Occasionally, fans. They might even live long enough to retire if the gods are feeling bored. You are not a gladiator. You're something else entirely. You're a venator, which sounds noble if you say it in the right tone, like maybe it means hunter or warrior. But here in the bowels of the Colosseum, it means one thing: disposable beast bait. You're not meant to win. You're meant to make the lion look impressive. You didn't even get a trial. Just a papyrus scroll and a shrug from the magistrate, like it was out of his hands. It's the arena or the mines, he said, as if either was a vacation. The mines would have killed you slowly. The arena might do it quickly. That was the pitch. You chose the one with sunlight, which felt like logic at the time. But now, shackled in a transport cart that reeks of straw and sour piss, you wonder if the darkness might have been kinder. They shaved your head before the cart left the holding pen? Something about lice or discipline? Or maybe just convenience? You're not given a real reason. No one explains things to meet. The other men in the cart are quiet, except for the one who sobs like a kicked child. You don't ask his name. You've already learned that names are a liability. Names mean expectations, mourning, recognition. Out here, it's better to die nameless. No one mourns a number. The cart jostles through the city gates at dawn. People barely glance at you. The women selling olives don't even pause their shouting. A child points at you and laughs. You imagine she'll be in the crowd one day, cheering as a bear opens your chest like a bread oven. This is Rome, after all. People don't just accept violence here. They schedule it. Whole families arrive early for good seats. By mid-morning, you reach the Colosseum. You don't see the grandeur at first. The outside is impressive, yes. Arches and banners and the kind of architectural smugness only an empire can afford. But you're not taken through the grand entrance. You're led through a back corridor that smells of old blood and damp limestone. A slave with a branded cheek leads the way. He doesn't speak, just points. Your cell is a stone box with a straw mat and a chamber pot that's already full. The walls are slick with condensation, and the air tastes like rot. Somewhere above, you hear a roar. Low, guttural, and far too close. The others flinch. You don't. Not because you're brave, but because fear has already done what it came to do. You're past trembling now. All that's left is the waiting. A man visits you later that day, not to offer comfort. He wears the red sash of the Lanista, the Beastmaster. He looks you over like a man assessing a mule with 3 legs and a cough. You're told your first match is in a week. Standard practice, he says. Enough time to get familiar with your role. You nod because you've learned that nodding keeps the beatings to a minimum. That night, you try to sleep. The noises make it difficult. Something claws at a nearby wall. Someone screams in another cell. You're not sure if it's pain or practice. The man next to you mutters prayers under his breath, each word stitched with panic. You stop listening after a while. You stare at the ceiling and try to think of anything else, but all your mind returns to is that moment in the courtroom when the magistrate glanced at your file and yawned. You were already gone the moment you stepped through that door. In the morning, they brand you. It's small, just a mark on the inside of your forearm, hidden from the audience, but unmistakable to anyone who matters. It means you're property of the Venationes, the beast hunts. If you run, they'll know where to send your corpse. If you die, it helps with inventory. The man who burns it into your skin doesn't look at you. He's done this before. Probably did it yesterday. Might do it again before lunch. One morning, after a breakfast of barley mash and something pretending to be cheese, you're told to get up and follow a man with a limp and a whip. He doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't need to. The whip does the talking. You trail behind him, through a tunnel that grows darker and more putrid with every step, until the smell is less a scent and more a condition. You pass through a doorway, smeared with something brown and sticky, best not to investigate, and descend into the bowels of the Colosseum, where the real horror lives. The first thing that hits you is the sound. It isn't just noise, it's layered. Snorts, hisses, low grunts, metal clanking, and the constant creaking of wood under tension. And underneath it all, the whine of animals who've been caged too long and handled too roughly. The scent comes next. It's an unholy blend of wet fur, urine, raw meat, and mould. It burns your nostrils and coats your throat in something thick and unpleasant, like spoiled milk left in a leather pouch. This is the Vivarium, the holding pen for the creatures that make the audience shriek and the arena sand run red. It's not just lions, though. There are plenty of those. Some pacing, some napping, and one currently vomiting in the corner. There are leopards, shaggy and wild-eyed. A rhino behind warped iron bars, scraping its horn against the wall with slow, furious intention. There's a crocodile in a trough of standing water, barely visible under a scum-covered surface. You stop walking when you spot a bear gnawing on something that, at a distance, looks like rope. Then you realise the rope has a hand. No one reacts. Not the man with the whip. Not the other handlers. Not the slave dragging a bucket of spoiled meat through a puddle of blood. It's not even worth mentioning. Just another day in the Colosseum's basement zoo. You, on the other hand, have started sweating through your tunic. There's no map, no schedule, no briefing. You are simply told to watch the cages and don't be stupid. Someone hands you a long stick, more of a pole really. It has a dull metal hook on the end, like something you'd use to fish trash out of a well. This is your primary tool, not a weapon, a suggestion, a reminder to the beasts that you exist and would prefer not to be eaten just yet. One of the more experienced handlers, if that word even means anything here, tries to explain the rules. Don't turn your back on the leopard. Don't get too close to the bars. Don't feed the animals anything you're not willing to lose. The lioness in the corner is due to fight tomorrow, so don't let her get too riled up. The panther hasn't been fed in 2 days, which is intentional. The rhino broke its last enclosure, and probably will again, so if you hear wood splintering, run. That's it. That's the training. You're not told what any of the animals eat. You're not told when or where the fights are. You're not even told how many animals there are. Just that, if one goes missing, it's your fault. The other handlers don't help much. Most of them are conscripts like you, brought in for petty crimes or bad debts. They do what they're told and try not to get noticed. Some of them have been here for weeks. Others, you suspect, were just promoted from corpse to colleague. The beasts themselves are a study in contrasts. Some are terrifying, coiled muscle and yellow teeth, eyes locked on you like you're already dinner. Others are just sad, emaciated, listless, more ghost than predator. You see one lion that's gone half blind, its fur mangy, its limbs trembling. You're told it's still good for the morning show, just needs the right lighting and a weak opponent. That would be you. Every animal here has been dragged across continents, kept in tiny cages, whipped, starved, and paraded for Roman amusement. Most are confused, half-mad, or barely alive. You start to realise that you're not the only prisoner in this building. You're just the one who can still speak in full sentences. At one point, you're instructed to help with feeding. This involves hauling buckets of raw meat into a pit, while another man bangs a stick against the bars to keep the tiger from lunging too early. It doesn't feel like a job so much as a dare. The meat is rank, green in places and crawling with flies. You're told it doesn't matter. They'll eat it anyway, someone says with a shrug. You want to ask if the same will be said about you. Later, you're assigned to clean out the waste under one of the cages. You're handed a small shovel and a bucket already half full with something viscous and brown. The stench makes you gag. A lion watches you the entire time, its eyes glowing in the gloom, tail flicking like it's waiting for you to screw up. You try not to look back at it. You try to remember the last real meal. You try not to cry. You learn quickly that this place runs on a careful balance of neglect and routine. The animals are kept alive just long enough to perform. The fighters are trained just enough to keep the crowd entertained. There are no heroes here, just flesh and teeth and scheduling conflicts. You are part of a rotating cast of dead men, slotted in between comic interludes and prisoner executions. By the end of the day, your arms ache, your nose no longer works, and your stomach is doing something unpleasant. The handlers disappear, one by one, back to their bunks or their vices. You're left to secure the cages, check the bolts, and make sure nothing is loose. It's a fool's task. One of the doors has a hinge held together with twine. A different one is missing its latch entirely. If something wants out, it'll get out. You've seen the claw marks on the walls. You've seen the bloodstains that no one bothers to wash. When you return to your cell, you can still hear them, the animals, growling, pacing, breathing. The whole place hums like a hive made of bone and teeth. You lie down on the straw mat, filthy and exhausted, and close your eyes. You dream of claws, of chains, of laughter from above, and somewhere in the dark something growls your name. Eventually you're dragged to a sandlot behind the eastern gate and throw you a trident with a splintering shaft and a chipped prong. You're expected to figure it out. The man overseeing the process, your so-called instructor, is an aging brute with a leather vest, a permanent limp, and half a nose. The missing part looks melted. You don't ask how it happened. He doesn't offer it. His name is irrelevant. He doesn't tell you, and you never ask. He isn't here to build confidence or camaraderie. He's here to survive long enough to collect a payout if you live past your first match. And that doesn't seem likely. Every time you fumble the trident, he laughs. Not kindly. It's the laugh of a man who's buried too many others to pretend otherwise. Your training isn't what you'd call comprehensive. You're not shown how to aim or strike, or even how to hold the weapon correctly. He corrects you once when you grip the shaft too high, slaps you in the ribs, and tells you to pretend it's your wife. You don't know what that means. You just nod and adjust. Most of the sessions involve being told how not to die immediately. He demonstrates once how to sidestep a charging boar. You try it, you fall. He shrugs and mutters something about natural selection. Another lesson involves screaming at a leopard. Loud, high-pitched, panicked. Confuses them, he says. Sometimes. You ask what happens if it doesn't work. He smiles and shows you the gouges across his thigh. You practice in pairs when you're lucky, not because it's safer, but because there's a better chance the animal gets distracted by the other person. You spar with a man named Sylvanus, who used to be a butcher, before someone caught him stealing cuts for his mother. He's bigger than you, and better with a blade, but he's got a tremor in his left arm that makes his grip weak. You both learn quickly that skill doesn't matter much when you're up against something with fangs. There are mock animals, wooden frames covered in tattered hides, pulled across the arena by ropes to simulate movement. You jab at them half-heartedly, while the instructor drinks watered wine from a cracked cup and critiques your stance without looking up. Too stiff, he mutters. You'll die tired. You adjust. He still shakes his head. You're not being shaped into a warrior. You're being tested for minimum viability. Every once in a while, you're introduced to a real animal, but only the half-dead ones. Creatures that are blind in one eye or too sick to fight. They're brought out for controlled aggression sessions, which is a fancy way of saying you're thrown into a pen and told to stay alive for 30 seconds. No one explains what to do if the animal charges early, or if it doesn't stop. Once a leopard slips its handler's grip and pounces on a trainee. The man disappears under claws. You all watch. No one interferes. When it's over, the instructor sighs and tells someone to fetch another spear. Not for the leopard, for the next trainee. They feed you better than before, but not well. A bit of meat here, some overcooked barley there. Enough to keep your arms from shaking too much. You're expected to practice daily, despite the fact that your body is already breaking down. Blisters harden, bruises darken, your back aches, your legs feel carved from stone. The trident grows heavier by the hour. You stop dreaming altogether. There's no room left in your head. One afternoon, a medic visits the yard to assess the progress of the trainees. He doesn't check your form or your reaction time. He just squints at your arms, measures the width of your shoulders, and asks if you've ever had trouble with your bowels. You answer yes. He nods and makes a note. You're not sure if that improves or worsens your odds. The man beside you is dismissed entirely. Too short, they say. Might not make good sport. You don't see him again. The instructor eventually introduces you to a net, though not out of kindness. It's part of a traditional setup. Net and trident, the classic Venator pairing. You're expected to tangle the animal, then strike, in theory. In practice, the net tangles you. It catches on your ankles. It wraps around your wrist. Once it coils around your neck, and you nearly black out. You start to understand that the weapons are for the crowd's benefit, not yours. They're props. You're the part that bleeds. You're told to study the beasts, to know their moods. This is impossible, of course. Every animal is different, unpredictable, shaped by hunger and trauma and noise. One lion paces obsessively. Another lies motionless until you turn your back. You're told to look for signs. Tail twitching, ear flicking, weight shifts. But half the time, there's no warning at all, just claws and blood and silence. One day, you ask the instructor if anyone ever escapes this life. Not to freedom, just to something better. He spits and says, you die, or you get good at not dying. Same difference. That's the last time you speak to him directly. On your 7th day of training, you wake to the sound of a bell. It means assignment. Some of your group are being matched to fights. You don't know if you're on the list until a guard walks by and tosses you a helmet shaped like a dog's head. It's made of boiled leather and smells like vinegar and mould. You try not to gag. That night, the instructor claps you on the shoulder. Not as encouragement, but as punctuation. You'll make a good meal, he says, and walks away. And with that, your training is over. You assumed the animals were the dangerous part, and in a way they are. Claws, teeth, unpredictable aggression. But it doesn't take long to realise that what really kills you here isn't the lion. It's the system. A bloated, drunken bureaucracy built on blood and sand. The machinery of the games isn't designed for efficiency or safety. It's designed for spectacle. And if that means you die 10 seconds early because someone forgot to grease a pulley, so be it. Feeding time is when you first glimpse just how broken it all is. You're assigned to assist a handler named Dax, a man who smells like pickled onions and has a lazy eye that seems to track in 2 directions. He tells you the schedule, then immediately laughs, because there isn't one. Animals are supposed to be fed at 3rd hour, unless there's a visiting senator, in which case it's delayed, or cancelled, or doubled, depending on whether the beast in question is supposed to look ravenous or lethargic in front of the crowd. Lions, for instance, are starved before a fight. That's standard. Keeps them angry, unpredictable, easier to provoke. But if they win or survive, they're overfed almost immediately. Not out of kindness, out of convenience. A lion with a full belly is less likely to eat the next handler who opens the cage. Unfortunately, the system doesn't always remember which lions were fed and which weren't. You see one animal given 2 meals in a row. It throws up in the corner of the pen, then immediately starts trying to eat the vomit. You're told this is normal. Sometimes the food arrives spoiled. The meat is grey, twitching with flies, slick with rot. You ask if the animals get sick from it. Dax shrugs. They get sick from everything, he says. Better now than in the arena. That seems to be the philosophy here. Better the beasts die backstage than embarrass someone important mid-spectacle. But even that fails. You hear stories of bears collapsing mid-fight, of tigers who refuse to move, of hyenas that start chewing on the wooden props instead of the venators. And then there's the wine. Some animals are deliberately drugged before a fight. Not all of them. Not consistently. It depends on the crowd. If a noble family is visiting, and the emperor wants a clean, theatrical display, a few sips of fortified wine are added to the meat. Just enough to dull the edges. You once watch a panther stumble into the arena, yawn, and fall asleep against a prop rock. The audience laughs. They think it's part of the show. Of course, the reverse also happens. Sometimes a beast is riled up intentionally, starved longer than usual, denied water, jabbed with a stick before the gate opens. This is done for punishment matches, when the victim is meant to die quickly and brutally. You see one such fight. The man doesn't last a full minute. The crowd cheers, but even they seem a little unsettled by how fast it ends. Too fast, and it feels like a waste of a ticket. The logistics behind the scenes are worse than disorganised. They're theatrical. Animals are kept in holding pens, but also behind trapdoors built into the arena floor. These are supposed to rise on cue, dramatic, sudden, thrilling. But the mechanisms are old, rusted, maintained by men who don't care. Once you see a trapdoor rise 5 seconds late, revealing not a snarling beast, but a confused bear scratching its rear. The venator already lying in the sand looks annoyed, then terrified, then dead. Cages are labelled, but poorly. One reads leopard, but holds a cheetah. Another has no label at all, just scratch marks and a bent iron bar. You're told to avoid that one. No one explains what's inside. You ask once. Dax just says, something we can't replace. The handlers are no better. Most are former slaves, working off sentences, or bored veterans who failed upward. Bribes are common. A few denarii here, a favour there, and an animal gets a better slot, or a worse one, depending on who's paying. One day, a nobleman's cousin places a bet and accidentally tips a handler to drug a lion. The match ends with the beast wandering in circles, while the fighter preens for the crowd. Later, you hear the drugged lion was slaughtered for incompetence. Not the handler, not the noble, the lion. And that's the real lesson. None of this is about skill or fairness or preparation. It's about timing, presentation, whether your death fits neatly into the day's schedule. If the sand is too wet from the last execution, your match gets delayed. If the crowd is bored, they might release a second animal halfway through, just to spice things up. If a musician plays the wrong note before the gate opens, they'll delay the cue and forget to warn you. And if you turn your back at the wrong moment, someone will spend 10 minutes looking for your head. You find yourself studying the cages, the animals, yes, but also the locks, the pulleys, the trapdoor seams. You look for patterns, for signs of failure. You notice which beasts twitch before a fight, and which handlers forget to chain the back gate. You become obsessed with detail, not out of curiosity, out of survival. The only advantage you have is noticing when something's about to go wrong. And in this place, that's every minute of the day. Your official duties now include feeding the hyenas. They laugh when you approach, not because they find you funny, but because that's the sound they make when hungry. You learn to keep your movements slow. Never show your back. Drop the meat and retreat. One handler didn't. He's not around anymore. The hyenas are fatter though. Once you're nearly sent into the pen with a leopard for agility drills, but the gate jams. Everyone groans. Not out of concern for you, but because now someone has to fix the pulley. You're told to return to your cell and wait. You do, gladly. You're told you'll fight tomorrow. That's it. No time, no order, just tomorrow. The man delivering the news sounds bored, like he's announcing the weather. You nod because there's nothing else to do. You've seen what happens to people who beg or ask questions. The arena doesn't care what you know. It only cares how you die. They move you to a holding cell closer to the arena floor, a square slab of damp stone with a rusted grate, and a door that doesn't quite latch. Now there are others nearby. You can't see them, but you can hear them. The sounds seep through the cracks like sewage. One man mutters a prayer on loop, his voice cracking every few lines. Another is weeping. There's vomiting in one cell, silence in another. You don't know which is worse. You try to sleep, but your body refuses. Not because you're scared, though of course you are, but because the air itself is charged. Thick. Too hot and too cold at once. You lie on your back and stare at the ceiling, watching something drip from the corner and trying not to imagine what it is. The floor is wet in patches. You don't ask why, you already know. 100 bodies have come through this room. Some alive, some not. All terrified. You think about your family briefly. A flicker, more than a memory. A sister's laugh, maybe. Your mother's hands. But they feel distant, like stories someone once told you. You've been here long enough that the outside world has started to rot in your head. The past feels fictional, the future irrelevant. Only the next 12 hours exist, and then maybe not even that. What sticks is the thought that no one will remember your name. Not even the guards. Not even the man who takes your body off the sand. You've watched enough fights now to understand how it works. The crowd cheers, the blood sprays. Then someone else comes out, and it starts again. There's no pause, no moment of respect, just another body in the churn. You are the meat between courses. Someone nearby begins to scream. A high, broken noise that lasts far too long before it cuts off suddenly. You wait, expecting guards to intervene. None come. You wonder if the man passed out, or died, or simply ran out of breath. You pull your knees up and wrap your arms around them, trying to make your body smaller. The walls feel closer than they did an hour ago. The shadows heavier. Your mouth tastes of bile and iron. A guard brings you water in a chipped bowl. It smells faintly of rust, but you drink it anyway. You haven't eaten since morning, and you aren't hungry now. Hunger feels like something for people with plans. You're just trying to hold yourself together long enough to walk out under your own power. Some don't. Some collapse before the fight. You've seen them dragged out, limbs limp, eyes rolling. The crowd doesn't mind. They just laugh and call it bad acting. There's a torch mounted on the far wall, casting flickering light through the bars. You watch it like it might give you answers. Maybe if you stare hard enough, you'll find some noble purpose in all this. Some last shred of dignity. You don't. The flame dances and gutters, casting long shadows that make the room feel like it's breathing. You close your eyes again. Open them. Close them again. Time drips past, slow and sour. You hear the handlers upstairs preparing the beasts. Not with care, with indifference. Chains clink, cages scrape. The occasional roar echoes down the corridor. It doesn't sound angry, it sounds tired. You wonder if the animals know what's coming, if they've learned the rhythm, if they feel the shift in air like you do. Maybe they hate this place too, or maybe they're just hungry. At some point a priest comes by, not a real one, just someone in borrowed robes paid to offer last rites to anyone who wants them. He stands outside your cell and recites something half-heartedly. You don't recognize the words, you don't reply. After a while, he gives up and moves on. You hear him repeat the same broken liturgy 3 cells down. You wonder if anyone ever feels comforted by that, or if it's just for show. You try to steady your breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. You count. You fail. Every time you hit 10, a new sound breaks your focus. A cough, a groan, a distant crash. You remember something the trainer once said. It's not the first charge that gets you. It's the hesitation. You try not to think about what that means. Someone further down the hall starts singing. It's soft, tuneless, more rhythm than melody. You don't know the language. It doesn't matter. The voice is cracked but steady, like a man already halfway gone. You close your eyes and listen, not for comfort, but because it's something to hold on to. Eventually, it fades. You think of escape, not seriously, but abstractly. How far could you get before the guards noticed? Could you bribe someone? Fake illness? Hide? The answers arrive easily. Nowhere, no, and not a chance. This place doesn't allow deviation. The machine must keep running. The audience must be fed. Eventually, the torch burns lower. The cell grows colder, your legs cramp, your thoughts slow. You feel your heart thudding in your chest, like it's trying to flee without you. You curl tighter, grit your teeth, and try to pretend the stone beneath you is just a floor. Not a grave. You don't sleep. You just lie still and wait for the sun to rise on the worst day of your life. Morning comes not with sunlight, but with shouting. A guard bangs on the bars with the hilt of a sword, barking at you to get up. Your body protests. Every joint aches. Your mouth is dry. Your stomach is empty, but you feel like you might vomit anyway. You stand because there's no alternative. If you fall behind, someone else has to drag you. They don't like that. It slows the schedule. You're led to the staging area, a low-ceiling chamber under the arena known as the hypodium. The air here is different, charged, metallic, laced with oil and damp straw. Slaves rush back and forth, with buckets and armour pieces. No one speaks unless necessary. Everyone is busy trying to make the morning run like clockwork, or at least make it look like clockwork, even when everything behind the scenes is a mess of forgotten weapons and mislabeled lions. They strip you down and throw you a tunic that smells like it's been worn by 12 men and washed by none. Then comes the armour, if you can call it that. Not iron, not bronze, but thin leather painted to look like metal. It gleams under the torchlight, bright gold in places, but the flaking edges reveal brown beneath. You're not being outfitted for survival. You're being outfitted for show. This isn't armour. It's costume. A wooden shield is shoved into your arms next. It's round, too small to matter, with a faded emblem on the front. Something that might have once been a wolf, now smeared into obscurity. Then a spear. Technically, the shaft is warped, and the point is barely sharp enough to skewer fruit. You know immediately it won't pierce anything tougher than fabric. You don't ask for a different one. You wouldn't get it anyway. The final touch is your helmet. Leather shaped and painted into the rough approximation of a boar's head. The snout curves down over your brow, the ears curl back along your temples, and the eyes, your eyes, peer out from beneath heavy lids designed to make you look angry, or ridiculous, or both. You don't know which is the goal. Maybe it's both. The crowd loves irony. They'll cheer louder when you die dressed like a joke. Nearby, other fighters are being prepped. Some wear mock lion skins, others bright red sashes or helmets shaped like birds. You realise quickly that every detail of your appearance has been chosen for the audience's amusement. You're not a man, you're a character, a walking punchline. You begin to understand the cruel theatre of it all, how your death has been written as comedy, drama or farce, depending on the mood of the morning. You wait in line with the others, most of them silent. A few whispering prayers or muttering curses. Some look hollowed out, eyes vacant, skin clammy. One man is shaking so badly that his shield slips from his hand twice before a guard ties it to his forearm. No one laughs. There's nothing funny about it here, not yet. The humour only starts once you're on the sand. Eventually, you're told to move. The line begins to walk, slow and shuffling, through the corridors beneath the arena. This is the parade, though no one calls it that. It's meant to build tension, to give the crowd their first glimpse of the day's offerings. You pass holding cells, cages, props, and handlers with tired faces. You pass a cage with a sleeping lion, ribs visible, muzzle crusted with old blood. You pass a pit where someone is being cleaned up with a sponge and a bucket. You don't look too closely. The path winds past other fighters. Some nod, some don't. There's no camaraderie here, only inventory. Every man walking beside you is competition. For survival, for breath, for seconds. The hierarchy is unspoken. You're at the bottom. Everyone knows it. A venator dressed like a boar is unlikely to last long. You hear someone murmur something behind you in Greek. You catch one word, bait. As you near the arena floor, the light changes. The walls begin to glow with filtered sunlight, the kind that sneaks through grates and gaps. You feel it on your face and realise it's the first time you've been warm in days. It should be comforting. It isn't. It's just another reminder of where you're headed. The air grows louder, not suddenly but gradually, like a tide rising behind a door. 1,000 voices blend into a roar. Cheers, laughs, the rhythm of drums. You can't hear words, just emotion, excitement, anticipation, hunger. The kind of hunger that only grows when it smells blood on the way. You grip your spear tighter. Your hand is already sweating. At the final gate, you're made to stop. A slave wipes your forehead with a dirty cloth. Another straightens your helmet. You're inspected like fruit at a market stall. They don't fix anything. Just make sure nothing's obviously broken. The man ahead of you retches onto the floor. No one reacts. The man behind you whispers something under his breath. You don't catch it, but it sounds like a goodbye. A horn sounds from somewhere above. The crowd erupts. It's not your cue yet, but it's close. You feel your heart hammering in your chest, fast and uneven. You try to breathe slowly, but your lungs have other plans. You wonder if anyone up there realises how absurd this all is, that you're dressed like an animal to fight an animal, with a weapon that couldn't cut cheese, for the amusement of people who will forget your face before lunch. The guard at the gate nods. That's your signal. No speech, no nod of encouragement. Just a nod to say it's time. You step forward. The noise hits first. You've heard it from below, muffled by stone and distance, but nothing prepares you for the full force of it. The sound pours over you like boiling oil. Cheers, jeers, laughter, whistles, the thunder of drums, the high, cruel trill of children yelling things they don't understand. It vibrates in your chest. It shoves your heartbeat out of rhythm. You can't tell if they're cheering for you or the thing that's about to kill you. Maybe both. That would be very Roman of them. The sun follows. You step into its glare, and it punches straight through your helmet slit, making your eyes water. You blink rapidly, trying to adjust, but there's no shade, no mercy, just heat and brightness, and the kind of theatrical spotlight that makes you feel like the punchline to a very old joke. Your feet hit the sand, and you immediately feel the warmth through your soles. It's not the gentle heat of a summer day. It's the sting of a stage left under fire for too long. You wonder how long you'll last before it starts to burn. You're in the arena now, fully exposed, a single figure in a costume, framed against stone and sky. Around you rise the stands, rows upon rows of Romans stuffed together in their tunics and togas, waving bits of cloth, holding bread, pointing, gossiping. You spot a man casually eating grapes, another throwing dice on the back of a friend. Some are watching you, Most are not. You realise with a small twist in your gut that you are not even the main event, just filler. You try to focus. Across from you sits a cage. It's too far to see inside clearly, but you can hear it, the snarl, low and steady, like a blade being drawn over wet leather. The cage rattles slightly as something inside shifts. You can feel the air change when it moves. Even the crowd quiets for a moment, not out of fear, out of interest. They're ready for the show to begin. Your hands are slick with sweat. The wooden spear feels even more useless now than it did in the prep room. You shift your grip, try to plant your feet. No one told you how to stand. There's no stance, no posture, just the overwhelming sense that every part of you is in the wrong place. You've trained for a week. You've watched men die. You know just enough to know you don't belong here. Your bowels loosen, not all the way, just enough to remind you that your body has its own plans. You clench and try to ignore it. You remind yourself that this is normal. Everyone feels it. You've seen the stains on other fighters' legs. The fear doesn't stay inside. It leaks, spills, breaks out wherever it can. You tell yourself it's fine. You're still standing. That's something. A trumpet blares high and harsh, and a voice calls something in Latin that you only half hear. Your name maybe, or your assigned title. You're not sure which would be worse. The crowd reacts. Some applause, some laughter. A handful of coins are thrown onto the sand, not at you, at the idea of you. You are a concept now, a curiosity, a bet waiting to pay out or fail. You glance at the gate again. A handler approaches the cage. He's holding something long and pointed, a prodding stick, you assume. He jabs it between the bars, and the snarl inside becomes a roar. The gate begins to rise slowly. The mechanism clanks and groans. The crowd leans forward in unison. You grip your spear so tightly, your knuckles ache. The thing that emerges isn't massive, but it's fast. A leopard, lean and scarred, with patches of missing fur and eyes that gleam like coins left too long in the sun. It doesn't charge right away. It slinks out, low and twitching, its body coiled with tension. It sees you. You see it. Time folds inward. You don't move, partly from fear, partly because no one told you when to. There's no signal, no command, just the two of you, alone in a pit, waiting for instinct to ruin everything. The leopard sniffs the air, then takes a step forward. You step back. The crowd boos. You realise they want action. They didn't come to see you survive. They came to see you try and fail. So you stop retreating. You raise your spear. It shakes in your hand. You try to lower your centre of gravity like they showed you in training. You wobble. The leopard notices. It moves first. Not in a grand, lunging pounce like the carvings on the amphorae suggest, but in a low, twitchy shuffle. It circles to the left, then the right, then back again, like it's trying to remember where the walls are. You realise abruptly that it doesn't know this space either. It's not a predator in its natural element. It's an animal shoved into a trap, half starved, half crazed, surrounded by noise and stench and blinding sun. And you're just the only other thing that's moving. You take a step back. The crowd doesn't like that. They jeer. Someone throws something. It lands behind you with a wet slap. You don't turn around to see what it is. You can guess. Fruit maybe. Bread. Something meant to sting without killing. The crowd doesn't want you dead just yet. They want you humiliated first. It builds tension. You raise your trident, too fast, too wide, and nearly lose your grip. It wobbles in your hand, like a flagpole in the wind. The leopard notices the motion. Its eyes flicker. You have its attention now, but not its respect. It still doesn't charge, just watches, gauging your weight, your stance, your sweat. It smells your fear, probably tastes it in the air. You wonder what you smell like to a predator. Cheap leather and terror, you assume. Then, without warning, it moves. A quick dart forward, only 2 steps, but it's enough to make you flinch. You jab the trident reflexively. It misses by a mile. You've overextended. You feel it in your shoulder immediately. The muscles strain, your stance breaks. You try to recover, but it's already circling again. This isn't a fight. It's a rehearsal for your obituary. You can hear your own breathing now, ragged and loud inside the helmet. It fogs up the inside of the snout. You blink away sweat and sand. The sunlight bounces off the gold-painted armour and into your eyes. You wonder who thought it was a good idea to blind the fighters. Probably the same person who gave you a wooden shield against claws that can peel bark off a tree. The crowd starts chanting. You can't make out the words. Maybe it's your name. Maybe it's kill. They blur together. Rhythm matters more than meaning. It drowns out your thoughts. You start to move again, not because it makes sense, but because stillness feels like death. You shift left. The leopard mirrors you. You jab again, too cautiously. You don't even aim. It's all show now. Finally, the leopard commits. It leaps, not high, not dramatically, just fast, efficient. It goes low, aiming for your legs. You jump back, twist, bring the shield down like they taught you. It works, almost. The beast hits the wood and slides off, snarling. You fall backwards, legs kicking in the sand, arms flailing. Your trident skitters out of reach. You feel the sun on your belly as you go down. There's a second of silence. Then the roar returns, deafening now. The crowd has seen you fall. They love it. They always do. You scramble to your feet, hands raw from the ground, shield still in place, but now dented and cracked. You don't know where the leopard is. You turn too fast, stumble again, catch yourself. Then you see it. It's pacing again, breathing heavily. One of its eyes is bleeding where it clipped your shield. Not enough to matter, enough to enrage. You find the trident, you lunge for it, grab it, spin, just in time. The leopard comes again, this time going for your side. You thrust upward, not with strength, but with panic. The tip connects, barely. It scrapes fur, maybe skin. The leopard jerks back, growling. You've hurt it, but not meaningfully. You've annoyed it. You've guaranteed that the next pass will be worse. You take another hit. This one not from the leopard, but from behind. Something thrown from the stands. You don't know what it was. It strikes your back and knocks the wind from you. The audience is getting restless. You're not bleeding enough, not dying fast enough. Someone calls for a second animal. You've heard that before. If the crowd gets bored, they'll release another beast. Just to spice things up. Variety is the key to a memorable morning. You try to focus. Your arms are shaking. Your legs are numb. Your vision is blurring at the edges. The noise is a wall now, unrelenting. You scream. Not at the animal, but at yourself. A stupid, choked sound. You think it's supposed to intimidate the leopard, but it does nothing. It just makes the crowd laugh again. You lunge again, one last try. The trident strikes true this time, right in the shoulder. It sticks, not deep, but enough to draw blood. Real blood. The leopard yowls, pulls back, thrashes. The weapon tears free. You're too slow to retrieve it. You're too slow for anything now. Everything inside you is fire and noise and shaking muscles. You've passed the threshold of fear. Now you're in the place beyond it, where instinct doesn't help and training doesn't apply. You don't even see where the blood goes. It's just everywhere. Yours, the leopard's, someone else's from earlier. The sand is stained dark in wide patches. Some of it clings to your legs, damp and warm. The metallic stench rises in waves, mingling with the overpowering smells of sweat and feces and fear. You realise your own body has contributed to that cocktail. You're bleeding from somewhere. Your forearm, maybe your hip. You can't feel it clearly. Everything stings. The leopard isn't dead. That much is clear. It limps away, snarling softly, head low, tail flicking. You expect it to turn and lunge again. Instead, it retreats toward the cage. Confused, tired, hurt. A pair of handlers emerge from behind the trapdoor curtain, poles and nets in hand. They corral it with practiced indifference. Not gently, not cruelly, just efficiently. Another animal, another mess to clean. It's not mercy, it's management. You're still standing, which means you've technically survived. But no one's rushing out to congratulate you. No fanfare, no triumphant music. The audience applauds, but more out of politeness than awe. Some start to stand, stretch, collect their belongings. The fight was short. Disappointing, maybe. Memorable, only because you didn't die instantly. Then someone throws something, a piece of fruit, overripe. It hits your shoulder and bursts. Sticky pulp dribbles down your chest. You aren't sure if it was meant as a reward or an insult. The line between the two is thin here. The crowd loves irony. Maybe they thought it was funny. Maybe they wanted to feed the animal they expected you to become. Either way, you don't react. You're too tired to invent meaning. You try to wipe the juice off with your shield, then realise the shield's cracked nearly in half. It must have happened during the fight. You didn't notice. It's just another piece of you that doesn't work anymore. You let it drop. It lands with a soft thud and kicks up red sand. A trumpet sounds again, short, sharp. You flinch automatically, thinking another beast is being released. But the gate creaks open, and a figure gestures for you to return. You stumble toward it, legs wobbling, eyes blurry. You don't know how you look from the stands, but if you saw yourself now, you'd assume the end was close. The gate shuts behind you, swallowing the light. You're back in the tunnel. The noise fades slightly, like it's being stuffed behind cotton. The stone walls feel colder now. You can still hear the crowd, but it's distant, disconnected. You've moved from spectacle to backstage, from living story to logistical issue. Someone grabs your arm, a medic maybe, or a slave with basic training. He presses a cloth against your wound without asking, then ties it off with a strip of fabric that smells like old vinegar. Another man hands you a cup of water. You drink it without tasting. Your body takes over the movements. You're no longer giving orders. You're just a passenger now, barely holding on. You're led back through the corridors past cages, ropes, the smell of beasts and blood. You pass another Venator being prepped, wide-eyed, younger than you, shaking as someone fastens a helmet over his ears. He doesn't look at you. You don't look at him. The exchange would take more energy than either of you has left. Eventually, you're dropped at a resting cell, smaller than before, no straw, just stone. The door closes and you're alone. You sit down carefully, as if your bones might shatter under the wrong pressure. Your hands are still trembling. You look down at them, stained with blood and fruit and filth, and feel nothing. There's no debrief. No one comes to ask how you're feeling. No one thanks you. The fight is over, and that means you're no longer relevant. A new act is on. Someone else is dying now. Someone else is bleeding where you stood. You wonder if the crowd's even noticed you're gone. You listen to the sounds of the arena. Not the screaming, not anymore, but the rhythm beneath it. The system churning forward. Gates opening. Horns blaring. Roars, gasps, applause. You hear the handlers shout. You hear the cages rattle. You hear another beast being dragged across the floor. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to block the light. Your head aches. Your side pulses with pain. You're not sure if the bleeding has stopped. You don't really care. You thought surviving would buy you time. It didn't. It bought you another match. You're barely healed. The cut on your forearm hasn't closed properly. Your ribs still throb when you breathe too deep. But you can walk, and that's apparently all that matters. The handlers come for you 2 days later, not enough time to recover. Just enough time to start hoping they'd forgotten about you. They hadn't. No one forgets a Venator who lives. The crowd remembered too. They cheered for your first blood. Now they want to see if you'll give them more. The armour they give you this time is slightly different. The same boiled leather, but now with a different coat of paint. Duller, flaking red instead of gold. Your helmet isn't shaped like a boar this time. It's shaped like a jackal. You don't know if it's supposed to be symbolic, or just whatever was clean enough. Either way, the point is clear. You're not a fresh sacrifice anymore. You're a returning character, a face they half remember, a name they'll mangle while they place bets. This time, they pair you with another Venator, a man named Regulus. Older than you, stronger too, though he walks with a limp that gets worse in the cold. You exchange no words, just nods. There's no point pretending this is a partnership. If he falls, the beast will look for you next. If you fall, you'll never find out if he even notices. The animal today is a hyena. Two, actually. They're released together, snarling and snapping, already half mad from the noise and light. You're told they were brought from Numidia, or maybe Syria, no one knows for sure. Wherever they came from, they hate being here. That makes two of you. The fight is uglier than the first. Less choreography, more chaos. Regulus gets one of them early, a clean strike to the throat. But the other doesn't falter. It circles wide, quick and jittery, eyes flicking between you like it's deciding who to eat first. It lunges at Regulus. He swings, misses, then it turns to you. You remember your training, or what's left of it. You scream, wave your weapon, make yourself big. The hyena flinches. That buys you a second. You use it badly. Your trident scrapes fur, not skin. The beast bites low, catching your calf. It doesn't tear flesh, just bruises the bone. But the shock nearly drops you. Regulus stabs it from the side. It screeches, buckles, writhes. You manage to hobble away, dripping blood into the sand. The crowd explodes, clapping, stomping, howling louder than the animals ever did. They're delighted. 2 men, 2 beasts, 2 survivors for now. Twice the pain for the price of 1 ticket. When it's over, you're not sure how. The handlers drag the carcasses away. Regulus limps toward the gate. You stagger after him. Your trident is gone again. You realise you drop it every match, like shedding a skin. You wonder how many broken weapons they collect per day. Back in the Hypogeum, a medic inspects your leg. He prods the bite, grunts, wraps it tightly. He doesn't clean it. No time, he says. You might be up again tomorrow. You don't ask why. You know better now. You've tasted what happens when the crowd enjoys themselves too much. They send you out again a week later. This time, it's not a beast. It's another Venator, a young man, fresh, nervous, sweating like you did in your first match. He's given a dull axe. You get a wooden sword. The crowd thinks it's hilarious. A fight between equals, sort of. You don't want to kill him. He doesn't want to kill you. But you both know how this works. You circle, feint, clash. The crowd grows bored. You see it in their posture, slouching, talking. Some begin chanting. Someone throws a stone. The message is clear. Entertain us or be replaced. You strike first, not hard, but enough to bruise. He reacts without thinking, catching your wrist with the axe handle. You shove him back. He slips, falls, and you know what comes next. You raise the sword. You wait for someone to stop you. No one does. So you do it. Fast, ugly, final. The crowd cheers again. For you. Not because they like you, but because they recognise you. You're the jackal now. The one who survived the leopard. The one who limped away from the hyenas. The one who just killed a man with a stick. They don't love you. They love watching you suffer, again and again. That's what makes you valuable. Not your strength, your continuity. After the match, you're given a stronger drink than usual. It burns going down. It doesn't help. You sit in your cell, staring at your own hands. They don't feel like yours anymore. You dream of biting something, of roaring, of being the beast instead of the man pretending to be one. You don't know how many fights you'll last, but you understand now. Every victory is a delay. Every survival is an invitation. Death isn't rare in the Colosseum. It's expected, scheduled, anticipated like a weather report. You know that if it comes for you, it'll be either fast, an instant of pain, a broken sound, the snap of something inside, or slow, dragging itself out over hours or days, under torchlight, through fever, across cold stone, where no one answers your questions. Either way, it will be meaningless, not noble, not necessary, just routine. You used to think dying in the arena would be the worst outcome. Now you're not so sure. There are fates here that sit just beyond the blade. You've lived long enough to see them. You've seen men survive 2, 3, 4 matches. Not because they're skilled, but because they're useful, familiar, popular, in the way a recurring punchline is popular. They become running jokes for the crowd. Nicknames get assigned. Boarhead, Lefty, the Screamer. No one remembers their real names. You doubt anyone ever knew them to begin with. The longer you survive, the more dangerous it gets. Not because the fights are harder, though they are, but because expectations rise. You're no longer an unknown. You're an investment. The crowd wants escalation, more blood, bigger beasts, higher stakes. You're supposed to suffer in new and exciting ways. If you don't, they get bored, and boredom is lethal. You've seen what happens when they get bored. The handlers are told to release a second animal, or a second fighter, or they rig the fight entirely. You once watched a man win, clearly, decisively, and then get run through by a gladiator sent in by accident. Everyone pretended it was a mistake. It wasn't. The crowd had gone quiet for too long. They needed noise. You fought through fever, through blood loss, through a shoulder that doesn't move right anymore, and a rib that stabs you every time you inhale. You've gone into matches half limping, unable to lift your shield properly, and still been shoved out under the sun because the schedule needed filling. Your condition is only considered after the crowd has had its fun. If you collapse early, they mock you. If you fight through it, they cheer louder. Either way, it doesn't change what happens next. You've seen the inside of the medic's room. You've laid on the stone while someone you've never met sews your skin together with a crooked needle. You've had wine poured into open wounds. You've bitten down on leather straps to stop from screaming. There's no recovery here, no rest, only triage. The goal isn't to heal you, it's to keep you upright until the next fight. After that, you're someone else's problem. And yet, you keep going. Not because you want to, not because you're brave, but because that's what the machine demands. You're part of the sequence now, part of the machinery that keeps the audience fed. The crowd has grown used to you. You're recognizable, marketable. You've heard children chant your name in the streets outside. You've seen coins tossed onto the sand when you land a solid blow. None of that means anything. It just means they want to see what happens when you break. The worst part isn't the pain. It's that there's no meaning to it. You're not a warrior. You're not fighting for freedom. You're not fighting for honor. You're fighting because someone with a clipboard put your name next to a time slot. And as long as you keep showing up, they'll keep filling in the schedule. When you finally die, and you will, it'll be to a crowd that finishes their wine, laughs, and moves on to the next spectacle. You think sometimes about letting it happen. Just once, refusing to fight, dropping your weapon, kneeling down in the sand, and waiting for whatever comes next. You've seen others do it. The crowd usually cheers. Then the beast is released anyway. Sometimes the fighter gets lucky and dies quickly. Sometimes not. But at least it ends. You haven't done it. Not yet. Maybe because you're still too afraid. Maybe because something inside you still believes, irrationally, that surviving might one day lead somewhere. But you know it won't. No one retires from this. No one fades out gracefully. They fight until they're forgotten, or until they're no longer interesting. Then they vanish. The armor gets handed to someone else. The nickname recycled. The death, when it comes, swallowed whole by the noise. Sometimes late at night, you hear someone in a nearby cell whispering to themselves. A prayer, a lullaby, a list of names. You hear the same name repeated 5-6 times, like it might bring someone back. You never ask who it was. You already know what it means. You know how many of you disappear without a trace. If you're lucky, if things go just right, the gate opens at the end of your match. You crawl, or limp, or drag yourself out. The handlers take over. You're wiped down with a rag, stitched if necessary, and left alone in the dark. Someone else cleans up the sand. Someone else disposes of the body you didn't become. The arena is prepped for the next scene. You are not mentioned again. But if you're unlucky, they forget to open the gate, or the beast doesn't die cleanly, or the crowd chants for one more round. You don't get a say. You just get whatever they're in the mood for. Death isn't the worst thing that can happen in the Colosseum. The worst thing is being useful. You don't leave a legacy here. That's not what the arena is for. It doesn't make legends out of people like you. It makes noise. It makes memories measured in seconds. Cheers, gasps, laughter, then discards them the moment the next spectacle begins. You are not a name, you are a sound, a smear, a reaction. Even if you live through a dozen matches, you're still temporary. They might remember your helmet, the way you screamed, the way your leg bent the wrong way when the boar clipped you. They'll tell a story over drinks about how you slipped in the blood and nearly lost an eye, but they won't remember your face, not the next day, not even that night. Their attention will shift with the next roar, the next costume, the next poor bastard in a jackal mask. Venators are not immortalised. No frescoes line the villas with your likeness. No poets compose verses in your honour. Gladiators get that sometimes, the crowd favourites, the ones who win enough to build a myth. But not you. You're the background noise, the build-up, the cautionary tale whispered by arena staff to newcomers. See that guy? He used to walk straight. You hear your name mispronounced more often than not. You stopped correcting them weeks ago. At first it stung. Then it stopped mattering. Now you don't even notice. They call for the jackal or the hyena bait, or that one who bled on the magistrate's son. You bow, you bleed, you leave. If you're lucky, they throw a crust of bread afterward. You've learned to eat it without looking grateful. You once asked a handler what happens to the bodies. He shrugged and said, "It depends on the day. Sometimes they're dragged out and dumped in the refuse pit behind the latrines. Sometimes the beasts get to finish the job. Sometimes a pyre is lit, if someone important is watching. But mostly, they just disappear, swept out like trash. You've stepped over more bones than you can count in the tunnels. Some old, some fresh, none with names. There's a graveyard allegedly, beyond the city. A shallow ditch where the bones of the forgotten are dropped in piles and dusted over with sand. No markers, no ceremonies, just a wheelbarrow, a few slaves, and a hill of limbs. You picture your own bones there sometimes, nestled among strangers, scraped clean by dogs, bleached white by sun and time. You wonder if you'd recognise them. You wonder if anyone would bother to try. You've started forgetting your own name, not entirely, not on purpose, but it slips sometimes, just beyond reach, like a word you once knew in a language you've stopped speaking. You remember the feeling of it, the shape, the weight in your mouth, but not the meaning. It's easier this way, easier to be what they want you to be, the jackal, the joke, the one who doesn't die when he's supposed to. You've seen others try to hold on. One man carved his initials into the stone wall of his cell with a broken nail. Another whispered his mother's name before every fight. A third carried a tiny charm on a string around his neck, a crude piece of carved wood in the shape of a hand. All of them are gone now. The initials have faded. The cell has a new occupant. The charm was thrown into the arena with the body. Even the other fighters forget you. They cycle in and out too fast. You nod to the same men for days, only to find out they died a week ago and someone else was wearing their armour. You don't ask for names, you don't offer yours. It's a kindness, really. There's no grief when there's no connection. Just silence. Just room for the next man. You wonder if the animals remember you. The ones you fought, the ones you fed, the ones who watched from their cages while you bled in the sand. Probably not, but it feels like they might. You've seen recognition in their eyes or something close to it. Familiarity, resignation. You're part of their world now. Another thing they growl at between feedings. The worst part is how normal it all feels now. The blood, the cheers, the heat, the sound of your own ragged breathing inside the helmet. You've adapted, not like a warrior, like a parasite. like something small and quiet that survives by forgetting what it used to be. You go where you're told, you swing when they hand you a weapon, you clean your wounds and sleep in place. You do it again the next day. There's no farewell waiting for you. No final match where the crowd stands in silence and nods in solemn respect. If you die, it'll be because someone missed a cue, or a gate failed to lock, or the beast was hungrier than expected. The sand will turn red. The handlers will nod. The schedule will continue. One day, someone will mention your name, maybe, in passing. Didn't he used to fight with a trident? Wasn't he the one with the jackal mask? He lasted a while, didn't he? And then someone else will say, who? You won't be remembered. Not by the crowd, not by the empire, not by history. Just bones cleaned by hyenas beneath the sand. This isn't madness. It isn't chaos. It isn't even cruelty in the way people like to imagine cruelty. Hot-tempered, impulsive, personal. Number. This is Rome. It's deliberate, efficient, beautiful in the way a meat grinder is beautiful when it's well maintained. You're not a mistake. You're part of the design. Every part of your suffering was budgeted, approved, and delivered on schedule. Someone scratched your name onto a tablet and assigned you a time slot. Another man double-checked the cage latch on the animal you'd fight. A third wrote up the report afterward. Attendance, noise level, blood spilled. It's all tracked. The system doesn't forget. Only the people do. You weren't chosen because you were brave or strong or entertaining. You were chosen because you fit the shape of an empty space. The schedule needed filling. The crowd needed something to scream at before their wine kicked in. You were convenient, replaceable, just distinct enough to notice, but not distinct enough to remember. You tell yourself it's personal sometimes, that there's something specific about you they hate. But that's giving them too much credit. You're not special enough to be hated. You're just functional. A warm body in a cold process. The gears need lubrication. You provide it. There are rules supposedly, systems to keep things fair or safe or organised, but they're not for you. They're for the crowd. The people watching need to feel like this is order, not butchery. So the deaths are timed, the wounds are framed, the sun hits the sand just right when you fall. There's a rhythm to it, and you're forced to dance whether you want to or not. The emperors don't look at you, not directly. They nod to officials, wave to the crowd, smile at dancers between matches. They're not monsters, they're managers. You're part of the day's logistics. If you scream well, they're pleased. If you die too fast, they forget you immediately. There's always another one behind you. You've survived more fights than you expected. That should mean something. It doesn't. You're not honoured, you're not respected, you're simply more useful now. They know your face. They have expectations. You're the returning act. The familiar figure who limps in with the jackal helmet and the uneven gait. The crowd chuckles when they see you. You've become part of the ambience. And still, the system eats you. It grinds you down with quiet precision. Your gear is patched instead of replaced. Your injuries are wrapped instead of healed. Your meals get smaller. Your cell gets colder. You're wearing out, and they are squeezing what's left. You don't even walk straight anymore. The limp has a name now. So do the scars. The staff talks about you like you're not there. You hear your name discussed while you're within arm's reach. He can probably go another week. If his leg goes, we'll just shorten the match. The crowd's tired of him. Maybe pair him with something new. Your inventory. They don't bother hiding it. You start to disappear while you're still alive. First from the posters, then from the announcements, eventually from the crowd's memory. You can feel it happen. Your entrance doesn't get the same noise. Your name is pronounced wrong again. Fewer bets are placed. Someone yawns during your fight. You realise you've become old bread. Still edible, still in the basket, but stale. And you're still here. Still breathing. Still waking up on a cold floor and waiting to be called again. You know the end will come. Not as punishment, but as timing. A bad matchup. a delayed gate, a crowd that wants surprise, it'll be quick or slow. Either way, it will be unremarkable. No one will tell the story, no one will carry your name forward, because this isn't about you. It never was. It's about Rome, about the system that built a monument to death and called it entertainment. That turned blood into ceremony. That taught an empire to feast on bodies and forget the taste. You were never meant to survive it. And if you do, if, somehow, you keep surviving, what then? Nothing. You'll walk into the arena again tomorrow, and no one will notice when you don't come back. That brings us to the end of tonight's story. Not of glory, but of exhaustion. Of a man crushed quietly beneath the spectacle he helped sustain. If you're still awake, thank you for walking through the blood-soaked corridors of a world that turned suffering into schedule and called it civilization. If you'd like early access to future stories, ad-free audio, or just want to support the show, you'll find the Patreon link in the description. You can also like, subscribe, or leave a comment with the forgotten lives you'd like dragged back into the light. And if you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps others find their way to these stories. Sleep well.